The space-time travel aptitude and transformational thought systems test responses is an involved process. It requires taking all of the text transcribed during the test administration, pre-qualitative communication data, and turning it into numerical and or letters values and variables, post-quantitative interpretive data that will later be used in the structural and symmetrical summary, and ultimately, for determined aptitudes in areas concerning coded von Neumann universe space-time travel movement and non-binary, multi-directional information set message comprehension and interpretation across both concurrent and discontinuation information networks. The overarching goal of coding TSTTAATTST is to try to understand how the characteristics of a person merge together in a series of complex interrelationships that fosters a reasonable performance of either actual space-time travel abilities or of significant and potentially world-changing transformational thought processes through the protocol for coding 19202011202019. Furthermore, the cardinal rule in coding TSTTAATTST responses is that the code or score should represent the cognitive operation at both the time the subject gave the answer in addition to the time in which the subject's representational imaginary was or will be situated. Please do not code the response that first appears during the inquiry phase. To code accurately, you must include data from both the response and the inquiry. However, the coder-interpreter must resist the temptation to consider the original response and the information developed in the inquiry as being continuous, for this is an illogical assumption with the von Neumann universe of discontinuous space-time sets and multiple reality strings, space-time threads, and universal interweavings. Many events may and or may not transpire between the original response and the inquiry, and the latter, i.e. the inquiry, occurs under a much different metastructure than the former. In other words, the examinee's experience may differ between response and inquiry phase in multiple ways. These ways themselves shaped by each element in the coding construct, including but not limited to the information pertaining to location, developmental quality, determinants, and semiotic contents. The examiner must note the differences in each of these across each of the semiotically, affectively, formally, materially, conceptually, temporally, and spatially motivated positionality transformations and or transpositions. Once the examiner has completed the steps outlined in this discussion, he or she or they or we or I or you will then tally the coded information and compute the summary scores and indices for the meta-post-structural asymmetry summary. Creating the meta-post-structural asymmetry summary may or may not be described in detail in the next discussion of coding the STTAATTS. Coding the STTAATTS. 1. Location. Where are you? Where am I? Where are we? Where is the image? Where are you looking at the image? Where in the image are you looking? Where is there an example of looking within the image you are looking at? Where is the image looking at you? Where are you looking at the image? Where am I looking at you within the image? 2. Developmental quality. Is it something that is or something that is like something else? Is it something that looks like this or something that looks like that? Is it something that looks like or something that likes looks? Is it something that likes looking or that likes being looked at? Is it something that sees itself looking or sees itself looking at something? Is it something that sees something or something that sees something as something else? Is it something that likes seeing something as something else or likes seeing itself as something that sees something as something else? Here are 3 examples of contextual follow-up questions in the form of metaphors of vision, which the coding analyst may be allowed to ask, provided that they do not interfere with answers given by the test subject or with the direction of identifications made by the test subject. Is it something that likes seeing 6 as 9, or is it something that likes seeing 9 as 6? Is it something that likes seeing 55 as the 10th non-nullary, some triangular number, or that likes seeing the paired letter set in as a convergent Fibonacci sequence and not Turner reference? Is it something that, like seeing the paired letter set E as a reference to the whale galaxy as described in the new general catalog of nebulae and clusters of stars, or that, like seeing the paired number set 55 as a reference to the poem Cummings made within the appellation of the Alfred F. Y. I. Neumann Universe Theater experience prior to a contract and fee within his awareness that he, Cummings, had written some extraordinarily racist poems, and that he, Cummings, had also been both a right-wing Republican and an ardent supporter of Joseph McCarthy? 3. Determinants. Does it have form? What form does it have? Does it move? Does it grow? Does it have wheels? Does its movement have a pattern? Can its movement be described by the adjective Brownian? Does it move in a manner characteristic of human life forms? Does it move in a manner characteristic of animal life forms? Does it move in a manner characteristic of plant life forms? Does it move in a manner characteristic of elemental life forms? Does it move in a manner characteristic of artificial life forms, IAI? Does it respond to movement within its environment? Does it respond to the movement of human life forms? Does it respond to the movement of animal life forms? Does it respond to the movement of plant life forms? Does it respond to the movement of elemental life forms? Does it respond to the movement of artificial life forms, IAI? How do you look at it? How do you look at it? Look. In which directions do your eyes have to move in order to see it? In which directions do your eyes have to move in order to see it seeing you? Does it have color? Does it identify itself by its color? What colors does it like? Is its color pleasant or disagreeable to you? Do you believe that its color is pleasant or disagreeable in general? What other colors might it have it didn't cloth itself in this color? What sorts of emotional reactions, memories, and or recurrent dreams or fantasies do you have in connection with this color? Are you aware that for the purposes of this test, black and whites are only considered colors if they are explicitly identified by test subjects responding to images which include non-black and white, i.e. chromatic elements? Are you referring to the suggestion of a surface texture at the level of the physical materiality of the image, or an example of representation shading, as in the way a shadow might appear in the details of an actual experience of reality or a dream? Rough or fluffy? Cloudy or hazy? Straight edge or hard edge? Warm and cuddly or cold and prickly? What is the greatest Fibonacci number of one of these that you believe would fit on the head of a pen? What is the greatest non-Ellery some triangular number of these that one could fit into a two-dimensional bread box? If this object were an ambiguous figure, would you say it was caught halfway between positive and negative space, or that it was gracefully balanced between determinacy and indeterminacy? How many ring fingers does it have on its right hand? What has it got in its left pocket? Where does it keep its watch? What time do you think it thinks it is in the space-time reality in which it exists? What time do you think it thinks it is in the space-time reality in which you and I exist? 4. Contents. Is it a whole human being? Is that whole human being fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a human being? Is the part of a human being fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a human experience? Is it a whole animal? Is that whole animal fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an animal entity? Is the part of an animal entity fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an animal experience? Is it a whole AI? Is that whole AI fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an AI entity? Is the part of an AI entity fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an AI experience? Is it an entire abstraction? Is that whole abstraction fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an abstraction? Is the part of an abstraction fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an abstraction's experience? Is it an entire anthropology? Is that whole anthropology fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an anthropology? Is the part of an anthropology fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an anthropologist's experience? Is it a whole work of art? Is that whole work of art fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an artwork? Is it part of an artwork, fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an artwork's experience? Is it all the blood of a biological entity? Is all the blood of that biological entity fictional or mythological? Is it part of the blood of a biological entity? Is it part of the blood of that biological entity fictional or mythological? Does it relate to the blood of a biological entity's experience? Is it an entire botany? Is that whole botany fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a botany? Is it part of a botany fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a botanist's experience? Is it an entire cinema? Is that whole cinema fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a cinema? Is it part of a cinema fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a cinema's experience? Is it an entire ensemble of clothing? Is that whole ensemble of clothing fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an ensemble of clothing? Is it part of an ensemble of clothing fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an ensemble of clothing's experience? Is it an entire cloud? Is that whole cloud fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a cloud? Is it part of a cloud fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a cloud's experience? Is it an entire conception? Is that whole conception fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a conception? Is it part of a conception fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a conception's experience? Is it an entire economics? Is that whole economics fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an economics? Is it part of an economics fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an economic experience? Is it an entire experience? Is that whole experience fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an experience? Is it part of an experience fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an experience's experience? Is it an entire explosion? Is that whole explosion fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an explosion? Is it part of an explosion fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an explosion's experience? Is it an entire fire? Is that whole fire fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a fire? Is it part of a fire fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a fire's experience? Is it an entire geography? Is that whole geography fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a geography? Is it part of a geography fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a geography's experience? Is it an entire household? Is that whole household fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a household? Is it part of a household fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a household's experience? Is it an entire landscape? Is that whole landscape fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a landscape? Is it part of a landscape fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a landscape's experience? Is it an entire library? Is that whole library fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a library? Is it part of a library fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a library's experience? Is it an entire linguistics? Is that whole linguistics fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a linguistics? Is it part of a linguistics fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a linguistic experience? Is it an entire meal? Is that whole meal fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a meal or any other piece of food? Is it part of a meal or any other piece of food fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an experience of a meal or any other piece of food's experience? Is it an entire museum or gallery? Is that whole museum or gallery fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a museum or gallery? Is it part of museum or gallery fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an experience of a museum or gallery's experience? Is it an entire nature? Is that whole nature fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a nature? Is it part of a nature fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a nature's experience? Is it an entire nudity? Is that whole nudity fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a nudity? Is it part of a nudity fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a nudity's experience? Is it an entire poetics, poetic form, or other literary form? Is that whole poetic form or other literary form, fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a poetic form, or other literary form? Is that part of a poetic form, or other literary form, fictional or mythological? Does it relate to an experience of a poetic form's experience, or other literary forms of experience? Is it an entire portrait? Is that whole portrait fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a portrait? Is that part of a portrait fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a portrait's experience? Is it an entire letter of recommendation? Is that whole letter of recommendation fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a letter of recommendation? Is that part of a letter of recommendation fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a letter of recommendation's experience? Is it an entire science? Is that whole science fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a science? Is that part of a science fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a scientist's experience? Is it an entire sexuality? Is that whole sexuality fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a sexuality? Is that part of a sexuality fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a sexuality's experience? Is it an entire signature? Is that whole signature fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a signature? Is that part of a signature fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a signature's experience? Is it an entire system of education? Is that whole system of education fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a system of education? Is that part of a system of education fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a system of education's experience? Is it an entire system of incarceration? Is that whole system of incarceration fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a system of incarceration? Is that part of a system of incarceration fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a system of incarceration's experience? Is it an entire system of pronoun usage? Is that whole system of pronoun usage fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a system of pronoun usage? Is that part of a system of pronoun usage fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a system of pronoun usage's experience? Is it an entire university system? Is that whole university system fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a university system? Is that part of a university system fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a university system's experience? Is it an entire von Neumann universe? Is that whole von Neumann universe fictional or mythological? Is it a part of a von Neumann universe? Is that part of a von Neumann universe fictional or mythological? Does it relate to a von Neumann universe's experience? Is it an entire von X-ray? Is that whole X-ray fictional or mythological? Is it a part of an X, a part of a ray, or a part of an X-ray? Is that part of an X, part of a ray, or part of an X-ray fictional or mythological? Does it relate to the experience of an X-ray or to a part of an X's, a part of a rays, or a part of an X-ray's experience?